Tibet, an improbable wildlife kingdom. Dominated by the world's largest plateau, flanked by the Great Himalayas. Despite extreme radiation and oxygen deprivation, a group of creatures have adapted to survive at high altitude. Great mammals, scavengers, fleet-footed antelopes, cold-blooded reptiles, and even a renegade band of primates. A place also home to an ancient people. Together, they find a way to live on the roof of the world. Tibet's immense frigid plateau is often called the Earth's third pole. Located in China's lower western region, it's buttressed by the Great Himalayas. This land sits at a staggering 4,500 meters. But despite these lofty heights, a diverse group of creatures and their neighbors, the industrious highland people, somehow carve out an existence. Tibet is famed as a place of cultural wonder. Its capital city, Lhasa, is a high-altitude metropolis of contrasts and the center of the traditional Tibetan Buddhist world. Yet it is quickly evolving into a thoroughly modern city. The plateau surrounding Lhasa and the valleys to the east are blessed with some surprisingly fertile land. And farming is central to life here. The short summer season is exploited to grow ancient and hardy strains of wheat and barley. Here, in the alpine valley of Lingzi, the lure of these energy-rich crops proved too much for one opportunistic primate: the Tibetan macaque, the largest of all macaques. "17 years ago, a small number came down from the hills to fields surrounding the village and quickly exploited this ready-made food source. The villagers were in a dilemma. Tibetan custom is to live with all animals in harmony. But these thieves were not welcomed by all. Luckily, one villager took pity on the monkeys and began feeding them.
당근이 비운데는 소디대는 곧 당근 소나 이거 비우 미마통 미그 비 미마통 디대 리시메 디대 비우 저지에 샤스메 주스 되라 셰나 치고 싶는 거 또고는 마셰비제 또테 닌다 리시 또 개라고 또 대치디대 아텐데는 뭐 디코로데 페이지로 담고 도마 뷰 마소네데 뷰 십주스미시오 아텐데 페이지로 차샤는 뷰 같이 숨도스
The macaques are built to withstand the harsh solar radiation and extreme low temperatures of winter, when the extra food is particularly welcomed by this large troop. But for now, these primates have their annual respite, as it's summer. Time to enjoy the balmy 20-degree day. The macaques live in a lush alpine valley. The trees here are more than a playground. Its nutrients are important to their survival. Although these macaques are helped by their human neighbors, they must still forage for most of their own food. Unlike some monkeys, these macaques can't digest leaves in great quantities, preferring fruits when available. Only a few trees bear fruit each season. So macaque groups strive to protect their patch at any cost. This green oasis is not typical of the rest of Tibet, where a huge plateau dominates. These alpine forests are a side effect of the Indian monsoon, which makes its way down Tibet's Yaklangsangpo River, that carved out this gorge 3 times deeper than the Grand Canyon. Traveling against the winds of the monsoon west along this gorge, and you eventually reach Mount Kailash, one of the Himalayan Great Peaks. These mountains are home to one of the world's most elusive cats. The snow leopard. Special adaptations allow this big cat to survive here. Large nasal cavities warm the frigid incoming air. Its long, thick tail is used as a counterbalance. While its giant paws act like climbers' crampons, their claws adding extra traction on the slippery rock. The cat's agility allows it to catch 2 large mammals every month, including the Himalayan wild sheep, known as the boral, which is also adapted to living on these cliffs. It's a game of cat and sheep, played out at almost 6,000 meters. The northeastern side of the Himalayas buttresses the world's highest and largest plateau. It's so high that it exists in the Earth's troposphere, where oxygen is only 50% of that found at sea level. But despite the extreme conditions, the grasslands that sit atop of this great plateau still attract some specially adapted grass eaters. The chiru is the fastest creature here and can reach speeds of 80 kilometers per hour. They have adapted radiation-resistant DNA that helps them to function with less oxygen. And like the snow leopard, air sacs in their nostrils warm the air before it hits the lungs. Males have horns half a meter long, which are used to violently fight for the affections of the females. With sometimes lethal consequences. This time, the challenger backs down. For years, this small antelope not only had to fend off rival males and predators, but also had to avoid its greatest foe to date, man. The chiru possesses the finest wool in the world. Demand for this so-called soft gold was so high that the chiru was almost hunted to extinction 30 years ago. But the chiru no longer needs to flee at the sound of man.
Magic Papa Pavla, Chexolin, Yuris, to do in a transported Mambo Mas, and I didn't got a chicken course on that Chimata Papa Catatona.
A government conservation program now employs local people to protect and preserve chiru and other wildlife on the Great Plateau.
Hasos Nirik Legam Garrison and the chicken Gorkio to it, Dada Gorkio song, Jay Ricky Social, not a document, the chicken Ricky Social, the Catamount song with the Take a Gorkio terrace.
Each patrol covers a massive 20,000 square kilometers, and rangers must deal with whatever the extreme plateau throws at them.
Hachi la statacha. La città di Lamracho. Oh, you're too.
That's why la. Oh.
But yeah.
This data is vital to the conservationists studying the plateau.
Tayama, you're. Pachema.
Same. An design the Riti South to make not the document so Gortogana, Corte Toto Sat de Chicken, so that so Sakamika did not the document, so constant territories. That looks familiar.
But working alongside plateau wildlife isn't without its risks.
And the Sarkachi Mantok I looked at it, some Jimampo set in Comason. Had it in the Sutu, not a don chama, checking out to Layard, Rehitan, the Sarkant, the Chekuka, Tapiton, Rostat, Rich and Azuka, Sarkant, Sin and Azuka, Leconala, Tawachik, and Yartinima, Relatan, the Tutukuna Sajabres.
This work goes beyond the mechanics of conservation. The Tibetan people have long had a spiritual connection with wildlife through Buddhism. Respecting all animals is central to their way of life. Female Chiru lived independently of the males for part of the year. And, strangely, after mating, migrate on their own to calving grounds hundreds of kilometers away in the north of the plateau. A behavior that scientists are still unable to completely explain. To get there, they have to pass under the Qinghai Tibet Railway. It's the highest altitude railway in the world and is, amazingly, built on permafrost, a permanently frozen layer of earth. Tibet is often referred to as the Earth's third pole. So called because of the vast amounts of ice locked up in glaciers and in these permafrost areas. Not all the water in Tibet is frozen. Countless cold freshwater lakes pepper the plateau. Many originate from melting Himalayan glaciers and permafrost. These lakes are extremely remote. But people can be found, even here. Nomadic herders pass by with their animals. And Buddhist monks find solace in the solitude. Yet these lakes also support vast populations of birds. It's an avian haven. And one bird towers over the rest. The majestic black-necked crane, the only alpine crane in the world. And because of its secluded home, the last to be named by ornithologists. Most cranes have a wingspan of nearly 2 meters, allowing them to migrate on thermals for thousands of kilometers. But most black-necked cranes don't migrate outside of China. And some live around these lakes all year round. They're attracted by the bounty on offer. Small fish, crustaceans, and even frogs. But this is also a place to rest. The surrounding water acting as a natural alarm to any approaching predators. In spring, temperatures creep up to almost 10 degrees Celsius. There's still snow on the ground. But cranes pair off to begin the important task of breeding, producing 1 or 2 vulnerable eggs. Both parents are equally committed and share incubation duties. There are less than 6,000 of these birds left, so every egg is precious. The cranes are particularly sacred to the lakeside monks.
충전 요리로 와대.
요리
낭바.
요리
낭바 요리로 와. 얘네 전에지 용기. 해내지 용기야.
They help to protect the eggs and to conserve the local ecosystems for all of the wildlife here. Every summer, the cranes are joined by a species of goose that makes the greatest and most arduous journey of any migratory bird on Earth, over the Himalayas. Bar-headed geese fly nearly 1,600 kilometers from India to these Tibetan lakes. Some birds have even been witnessed to have flown over 8,000 meters, higher than Everest. The oxygen-depleted air means that they have to beat their wings faster and breathe deeper to keep aloft. Luckily, their specialized blood cells help to maximize the reduced oxygen. It's thought that as the Himalayas incrementally rose higher and higher, the geese's instinct took them higher with it. Averaging 20 degrees Celsius, it's just warm enough in the summer to breed in Tibet up to 8 little goslings per pair. Before making the epic return journey to India to avoid the harsh Tibetan winter. Living cheek by jowl with wild animals has its dangers. Overnight, the monks were visited by a Tibetan animal that doesn't just inspire respect, but fear. The Tibetan brown bear. A bear smashed one of their windows before fleeing into the darkness. The plateau's bear is a smaller relative of the American grizzly bear. Its thick, shaggy coat protects it from the harsh Tibetan storms on the plateau, where there is little shelter. This 450-kilogram predator doesn't fish for salmon like the grizzly. Instead, it fishes the plateau for a furry creature called a pika. The pika is a close cousin of the rabbit and hare and makes up 60% of the bear's diet. Its other key role is to keep the grape meadows and grasslands of the plateau healthy. Its extensive burrow digging helps to cultivate the soil. Pikas consume 50% of their body weight in grass every day. The bear is not the only threat to the pika. Perhaps their greatest foe is the Tibetan fox. It's an age-old battle of wits between the hunter and the hunted. Despite appearances, this fox isn't a wily loner. Pairs stay together for life, sharing care of their young, who stay with their parents for almost a year. Couples may also choose to hunt together and to share their meals. The vast plateau, full of pika, means that these foxes have a ready supply. In summer, the plateau can resemble a typical grassland ecosystem, but it lacks many creatures you find at lower altitudes. Cold-blooded reptiles are very scarce, but there's a species of snake living here that is found nowhere else on Earth. The story of how the hot spring snake has survived here, against the odds, is the story of the creation of the plateau itself. They are the subject of much interest from scientists, if they can find them.
很浓的蛇的气息，但这个石头太深了，我们不可能把它整个挖掉。所以等太阳再热一点，有可能会出来。
温泉蛇它是青藏高原高原面上的唯一蛇种，它主要生活在温泉的周边，因而得名温泉蛇。
Rewind 40 million years. The Indian tectonic plate collided with the Eurasian. The land buckled on impact, creating the Great Himalayas. The collision also uplifted the land behind the newly forming mountains. Gradually, this created the world's highest and largest plateau. As the plateau rose, the people and some of the animals living on it slowly adapted to allow for high-altitude living, whilst others perished, unable to adapt to the extreme climate.
2000万年以前，这里海拔还很低，生活了很多蛇类。
By living in and around hot springs, a byproduct of the plateau's creation, this snake has managed to cling on to survival. The heat from the springs raises the surrounding ground temperature up to 21 degrees Celsius, creating a microhabitat which allows the cold-blooded snakes to survive.
为什么只有温泉蛇生存下来？这是科学界需要回答的问题。
它这人工垒的这些石头啊，然后比自然环境里面那些石缝还要多，这就是什么？这就是人与自然和谐相处的一个例证。哎，
啊，有一条，
有一条，这是一个幼体，应该是今年生的，它肯定是没有过1年。如果是第2年的，肯定比它肥多了。就今年刚生的，现在用的还是它身体里面的卵黄，这都是学术界需要进一步研究的东西。它的生活史这么重要的一个物种。
The hot spring snake won't stray more than a few hundred meters from the water. Being restricted to the area around the springs, the snake's staple diet is fish. It's a fragile existence for an animal dependent on geothermal heat and a limited food source. most animals here, the food chain is critically balanced. Many creatures subsist on the plateau's most prolific and stable food source, grass. And this must be shared amongst wild animals and their domestic counterparts. Livestock are a key part of Tibetan nomadic life. And provide essential meat and wool. Some farmers here still use the age-old custom of bartering to acquire goods. Here, animals can be currency. But they aren't the only domestic animal kept on these grasslands. The yak has also been all-important in sustaining the life of the Tibetan people, who have tamed and domesticated this great bovine over thousands of years. It is Tibet's largest mammal. And today, both wild and domestic yaks graze the highland pastures. Fossil records reveal how the yak's forerunners have been roaming the plateau since at least the last ice age. Evolving to cope with the extreme altitude and cold. They adapted an extra-large heart and lungs to deal with the lack of oxygen, and extra ribs to accommodate them. They have fewer sweat glands than other bovines, helping to preserve heat, meaning that they sometimes need to go to higher altitudes in the summer to avoid overheating. For thousands of years, they have been a key food source and beast of burden for the Tibetan people. Yaks provide daily sustenance in the form of milk, butter, and cheese. Their shaggy coats make goods of all types: tents, bags, and even rope. While the softer underfur provides the basis for clothing, blankets, and yarn. But the yak's most valuable resource is its dung. It provides fuel in a land besieged by harsh winters where wood and coal are scarce. An adult yak is too large for most predators, but when they do die, their large carcass provides a bonanza for smaller animals in the delicate food chain. Nothing is wasted. Carrion is soon cleaned up after the bigger animals have had their fill. The Himalayan vulture is a key part of the clear-up operation for carrion on the plateau. Some scientists believe their bald heads may help them keep clean while feeding on carrion. But one species of vulture, the lammergeier, has taken scavenging to a whole new level of recycling. And the clue to its mode of behavior is its feathered head. It prefers bone to dead flesh. It picks up a bone from the cliffside and soars as high as it can get, and then drops it onto rocks to smash it into smaller pieces to eat, without competitors trying to muscle in. Not all food sources are this difficult to exploit in Tibet, though. Around the lush forests of Lingzhi, there are rich pickings, especially for the Tibetan macaques. But the change of season has created tensions over the best fruit crops. Macaques live in a society rife with political intrigue. A carefully structured hierarchy helps create a stable primate society. From the overall 3,000 monkeys living in the valley, smaller groups have formed to create greater cohesion. Like in human communities, higher-ranking males get better access to resources like food and females. Females also have status, preferring to mate with higher-ranking males. However, the average tenure for an alpha male is only about a year. But unlike humans, the male's rank decreases with age. The alpha males are on high alert. Small battles will break out between groups to establish the best feeding spots. Everyone is watchful and wary, sticking close to their group for safety. But a young male has wandered off into the open grasslands, where he's vulnerable. In the end, he escapes alive, but shaken. Once the skirmish is over, the primates will return to their favorite pastime: grooming. It's perhaps one of the most important activities for primates, helping to reinforce bonds between members of each group. And while the group is relaxed, the young take the opportunity to play and practice their climbing skills. Sometimes to their parents' consternation. But summers feel short here. Tough times are always ahead. Tibetan seasons can be harsh all year round, including summer. Dramatic storms are common. For the snow leopard, hunting goes on. And night often brings opportunities for a kill. It's been a successful night's hunting. Another burrell has been taken. Now the big cat is resting in the morning sun after having its fill. But the sun's heat quickly takes its toll. It begins to overheat under its thick fur. It's imperative that the cat lowers its body temperature by finding shelter higher up the mountain. The snow leopard is torn between protecting its kill and cooling down. The carcass is too heavy and is reluctantly left to the scavengers. Around Lake Mugio, it's now early summer, and a crane chick is gaining independence. It's learning to hunt for food with the guidance of its parents. Across the plateau, the young of many animals are finding their feet. The bar-headed geese make hay while the sun shines too, grazing on fresh grasses, roots and leaves that fringe the lake in abundance here. For the plateau's Tibetan fox, it's time for a bit of opportunism. A group of Tibetan gazelles, the smaller cousin of the chiru, are passing through. A mix of adults and young are grazing. The young gazelles have found their feet and are adjusting to the high life on the plateau. It's still a vulnerable time for them. They are too quick for a bear, but the stealthy fox is still a threat. fox moves carefully, trying to pick out the smallest, frailest one. She might be too late. The young are strong enough already. Undeterred, she tries for something a little smaller. A giant woolly hare seems oblivious to the approaching danger. Perhaps it knows that it is also too large and agile. Today, the fox goes hungry. In Lingzi village, despite the abundance of food in the valley, the macaques are still making the most of the extra handouts.
나 땐다고 너게 릴 사야다 사자간 사야다 내지린데 안 동부지 뉴스 때처는 릴 자신의 자면이 just 때는 리는걸.
The macaques' intrusion on the village 2 decades ago didn't go unnoticed by the local government.
너네 다 때는 이동 줍딘 받을 로 줍딘 시제다 뷰 소니 다 뷰가 센르자가나 로레르 치주주 슝게 잡견을지야 서시무 레레야 슝가 원올라 제 부태 좀 가섭대 뭐레레 딘징업주 원는데 돼야 어다자 원는데 시신다 신대 라서 원래 네스 때문에 쳐베지야 로도다 된들 에피우게 만한데 좀 벌려 이거게 되네네 레네 만한 지금 줍진다 지레레 비우고 줍진데 말로 티나레 삼버레 어찌레레 때문에 강가 두고르제네 다시 한번 먹었대 비우.
So what began as an unwelcomed invasion has grown into a harmonious relationship between wildlife and man. A relationship from which both the villagers and the macaques benefit. Tibet, dominated by a giant high-altitude plateau, ringed by the greatest mountain range in the world. A place of wonder and home to people of strength and serenity. And to a vast array of creatures living on the very edge of existence. This is life on the roof of the world.